and we'll move to question time. Senator Ruston.
Before that, I seek leave to make a statement regarding ministerial arrangements.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted.
Okay. Could I advise the Senate that following a reshuffle of the Shadow Ministry on the 14th of September 2025, Senator Chandler has been appointed Shadow Minister for Cybersecurity and Shadow Minister for Science, and I seek leave to incorporate in Hansard the Coalition Shadow Ministerial arrangements dated...
Leave granted? Yeah. Leave is granted.
Sorry? Oh, you did that as well. Dated the 30th of October 2025.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. We'll now move to question time, and I'll call Senator Kvasic.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Last night, 60 Minutes aired another round of deeply disturbing allegations about corrupt and criminal behaviour in the CFMEU. This time the behaviour has occurred whilst the CFMEU is under administration by the Albanese Labor government. The reports came after it emerged in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age that John Perkovich had accepted numerous bribes from building firms that he was meant to oversee as a union official. He was only sacked by the government's administrator after questions from the media. Why is the government only taking action when journalists come knocking? Why isn't the government's own administration doing its job and cleaning up the corrupt and criminal behaviour of the CFMEU?
Thank you, Senator Kvasic. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President, and thank you for your question, Senator. If I may indulge me, a shout-out to Senator Cash, who tells me she's watching this. I told her she really needs to do something else, I reckon, don't you? And she would be really pleased with your first question, no doubt, on the CFMEU. So she's here in spirit, if not in person. Senator, can I just say to you that the government has taken the strongest possible action by placing the CFMEU into administration. We know this is serious reform, and we are committed to the administration staying in place until the job is done. There is no place in the Australian trade union movement or in any institution for corruption, criminality and thuggery. And I would make the point, Senator, that this is action that has been taken for up to 5 years, and that the administrator has taken several measures to rid the union of corruption and bad faith actors, including removing or accepting the resignations of some 60 staff, developing a national code of conduct and statement of expectations for all staff, as well as policies relating to enterprise agreements, gifts, organised crime and menacing behaviours, and has established several inquiries into the state branches of the CFMEU. The scheme the government has put in place does give the administrator significant powers, and that is right. That is the right thing to do. There is, as I said, there are so many men and women across this country who work either as officials or who in their workplaces are delegates, who do so much work for the people they represent. And we as a movement, the Labor movement, should not be and do not countenance corruption and thuggery in any form.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Kvasic, first supplementary.
On Friday, the Sydney Morning Herald reported that the Prime Minister's office barred journalists from asking questions about the corrupt and criminal conduct of the CFMEU at an event the Prime Minister was attending. How much bigger do the scandals need to get before the Prime Minister will start answering questions and come clean on just how intertwined the Australian Labor Party and the CFMEU actually are?
Thank you, Senator Kvasic. Minister Wong. Senator McKenzie, I've called the minister.
Thank you, President. Well, Senator, I'm not sure I'll take as read, if you don't mind, what you assert in your question about the Prime Minister's press conference. If you observe his press conference, he makes himself very available to journalists for questions and certainly is prepared to answer questions in a lot of areas. What I would say is the Prime Minister has demonstrated his leadership not only in the decisions that we have made to place the Construction and General Division and its branches under administration for up to 5 years, passing that legislation and backing the administrator to take the action that is being taken. But the Prime Minister also personally ensured that Mr Satko was expelled from our party, and that was the right thing to do. So I think he has demonstrated very clearly a very principled approach to these issues.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Kovacic, second supplementary.
The CFMEU's Victorian head, Zack Smith, sits on the Labor Party's national executive alongside the principled Prime Minister. On the 12th of September, Zack Smith directed a subordinate to secretly meet with Melbourne underworld figure Mick Gatto. Given he is facilitating contact between the CFMEU and organised crime figures, does the Prime Minister maintain confidence in Zack Smith's judgment, decision-making and fitness to sit on Labor's peak governing body?
Thank you, Senator Kovacic. Minister Wong.
Certainly, first in relation to the allegations or the assertions you make about Mr Smith, I would assume that these are matters that the Administrator can deal with in the context of the industrial regime. In terms of the Labor Party, I think the Prime Minister has made his position in relation to criminality and in relation to the need for appropriate standards very clear through his driving the expulsion of John Setka from the Labor Party.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. The Albanese government's first term saw the government improve Australia's standing around the world in the face of unprecedented global challenges. What is the government doing to continue to advance our national interests in our region and beyond?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you very much, President. I thank Senator Ciccone for his question and for his interest in these matters and for his able chairing of the Foreign Affairs Committee, both in estimates and more generally. President, we all know, Australians know, we do live in a more uncertain world, a more unstable world. And I have said many times that Australians should have confidence in our ability to navigate these uncertain times together. And that is what we are doing. And we have, since we were elected, as a government, we have worked to strengthen all of Australia's relationships. This includes our relationship with our principal strategic partner, the United States of America. I was very pleased, and I think the country was very pleased, that the Prime Minister's meeting with President Trump last week was a clear success. A clear success. The Prime Minister, the President, signed an historic $8.5 billion deal, that's around 13 billion Australian dollars, on critical minerals and rare earths. A deal that will help secure supply chains for these vital products so that Australia and America can make more things together going forward. And it builds on the Quad Critical Minerals Initiative that Secretary Rubio and I announced at Washington DC earlier this year with our Quad partners, and on the Critical Minerals Strategic Reserve that the Prime Minister announced during the election. These initiatives are landmark. They are good for Australian workers, Australian businesses and Australian investors. Excuse me. President Trump also affirmed his support for the AUKUS partnership. The meeting's success is a testament to the trusted partnership between Australia and the US as strategic defence allies, and it speaks to the importance of advocating for Australia's interests in a calm and mature way, as the Albanese government has been doing.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, first supplementary.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Minister. Now, we also know that the AUKUS partnership is the single biggest investment in our defence capability in our history, representing a very big moment for our nation, our defence force and our economy. Can the Minister please outline to the Senate how the Albanese government is delivering on our AUKUS partnership?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Senator Ciccone, the President's affirmation of AUKUS is a strong and welcome signal of the strength of our alliance with the United States, and the President couldn't have been clearer. It's full steam ahead for AUKUS. AUKUS will better enable Australia to contribute to the strategic balance of our region, to ensure that our region remains peaceful, stable and prosperous, and a region in which sovereignty is respected. That is in Australia's national interest, and that helps keep Australians safe. AUKUS is also a once-in-a-generation jobs and skills opportunity for Australia, particularly in my home state of South Australia, but across the country. We are partnering with higher education on STEM courses, and the Skills and Training Academy is being built and apprentices are being trained through TAFE SA, and 7,000 more Australians will work at the Osborne Naval Shipyard. This means highly skilled, well-paying, secure jobs in South Australia and across the country now and for the future. Jobs only Labor delivers.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Ciccone, second supplementary.
Thank you again. Given the complexities of the challenges the world faces, why is it so important that Australia speaks with one confident voice in international affairs? And what might prevent Australia from achieving important outcomes in our national interest?
Thank you, Senator Ciccone. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, we will continue to advocate on this side of the chamber for Australia's interests, despite those opposite, the Liberals and the Nationals, being out of step again and again. And they are still trying. They are still trying to undermine our relationship with the United States. And I'd remind those opposite of just some of the commentary on their strategy from Mr Kelly in The Australian. This is a humiliation for the coalition. Nearly everything they said now looks misconceived or plain wrong. From James Massola in the Sydney Morning Herald, the opposition attack has come unstuck, and the sooner they realise it, the better for them. And even Senator Hume has called her leader's attacks churlish. Churlish. You know, it's pretty dire when a backbencher has to remind their leader of what the national interest looks like. It shows that those opposite aren't up to the job. You're focused on fighting amongst yourselves. We're focused on delivering for all Australians.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Canavan. Order. Senator Ayres. Order. Order. Senator McKenzie. Order. Just a moment, Senator Hume. Senator Canavan and Senator McKenzie, you're not in a competition to see who can yell the loudest. This is question time. When I ask you to come to order, that is what I expect. Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Last night on the 60 Minutes program, they exposed the continued allegations of corrupt and criminal behaviour of the CFMEU, over a year after the Albanese Labor government had begrudgingly placed the union into administration. To date, the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations has continued to stand by the CFMEU administrator. Does the Prime Minister continue to support the CFMEU administrator?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Thanks, President. I missed a couple of parts of the question, but I would say first, Senator Hume, thank you for your intervention and looking to the national interest more recently in terms of the US visit. In relation to the CFMEU, I would make the point that the government has a long list, a long record of taking action on the CFMEU. As I said, obviously the Prime Minister led the expulsion of Mr Setka from the Labor Party. We passed the administration bill in 2024. We placed the Construction and General Division and its branches under administration for up to 5 years. We appointed Mr Irving Casey as an administrator who has taken a range of steps, including the removal or accepting the resignations of more than 60 staff, the development of a national code of conduct and statement of expectations, and policies related to enterprise agreements, gifts, organised crime and menacing behaviour, and, as I said, establishing several inquiries into state branches of the CFMEU. The scheme gives the administrator significant powers, and he and his team are working around the clock to stamp out corruption and clean up the union, including removing corrupt individuals. I think there was a reference to the Minister for Workplace Relations, who is doing a fantastic job. She has been part of, and I will also acknowledge the previous minister, defending the High Court case taken by the CFMEU, which attempted to render our legislation invalid. We have also seen the administrator refer the AFP to set up Operation Rye to investigate criminality and corruption in the construction industry, and I can go on. So the point I make.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston.
Just on a point of direct relevance, Chair, the question was quite clearly, does the minister continue to support the CFMEU administrator? It's a simple yes or no.
Thank you, Senator Ruston. The minister is being relevant. The question also referenced the 60 Minutes report as well. Minister, please continue.
Well, there was quite a lot, if I may say, in the question. And I would make the point that the minister is the minister responsible for the portfolio, and she is doing an excellent job. And she has expressed her views about the administrator, the government is very clear about the intention to continue.
Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Minister, given the administrator's repeated failures to detect wrongdoing before it's exposed by journalists, what possible justification could there be for the Prime Minister's ongoing confidence in him?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I disagree with the content of a great deal of that question, and I would make the point that there has been a lot of action taken, including by the administrator, in relation to conduct with and the culture within the CFMEU. Has also been engagement from Minister Rishworth, and as I said, we have seen Operation Rye, where I understand the AFP Commissioner has made clear that work is being undertaken in that context by the appropriate enforcement authorities. These actions are being taken. We know there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but we are determined to ensure that there is the needed reform of this industrial entity.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Minister, the CFMEU Administration's Victorian head, Zack Smith, who met with John Setka reportedly and has had repeated contact with him over the past year, sits on the Labor Party's National Executive alongside the Prime Minister, alongside Senator Ayres, Senator Brown, Senator Ciccone, Senator Grogan, Mr Hill and Mr Ray. Just how intertwined, Minister, is the Australian Labor Party with the corrupt and criminal CFMEU?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Well, this Labor government has taken stronger action in relation to the CFMEU than any former government. Exactly. So let's be really clear about that. No amount of you just yelling answer the question, Senator McKenzie, makes anything you say true. Makes anything you say true. This doesn't make it untrue. Well, I suppose if that's your bar. We have taken stronger action than any previous government in relation to the CFMEU, and we have been clear about why we are doing this. And I understand that those opposite cannot bear the fact that they were unable to do what we have done, which is to put this entity, this industrial entity, into administration and to enable an administrator half a decade to ensure that the culture is changed and that criminality and thuggery are stamped out.
Thank you. And Senator McKenzie, once again, when I ask for order in the chamber, it includes you. Senator Waters.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Leader of the Government representing the Prime Minister. So far in this term of Parliament, the Prime Minister has delivered a climate target for Santos, Woodside and Glencore, a housing policy for the big four banks to drive up prices and profit off bigger debts from young Australians, and he's put forward environmental laws that Chevron and BP are thrilled about. When will the Prime Minister work on behalf of the Australian people rather than Australian boardrooms?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
The problem with that question is it's a question that's based on a few bumper stickers, and it's also a question that's based on untruths. It is not correct to say that our target is as you suggest. It is not correct to make the assertions you're making about different areas of policy. And I'd invite you, Senator, I don't know if you've actually engaged with any Pacific leaders or looked at the remarks of the President of Palau after we announced our policy. But I'd invite you to do that because I know it doesn't line up with your narrative, but he had outlined his understanding of why this was an ambitious target. And the challenge is, Senator, twofold. The first challenge is the Greens political party's position is you can just make things real by saying them, not actually have to deliver it. And the second The second problem is you think that you don't understand government's actually trying to govern for the whole of the country, actually trying to govern for everybody. You think just because we don't agree with you that is because somehow there's, we've been captured. Actually, it's just that we don't agree with you about what governing for the country means. This Prime Minister and this party and this government, we govern for the country.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. The Prime Minister has watered down climate ambition and now watered down superannuation tax reform. Will the Prime Minister again intervene to further water down environmental laws so that massive destructive corporations can just trash whatever part of the natural world that they want? Is any reform safe from his pandering to big corporate interests?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, that's a ridiculous question. I mean, I generally try to take, even if I don't agree, I try to treat questions with respect, but frankly, that is ridiculous. You know, we are trying to get reform, and Senator Watt, Minister Watt has been, I think, in the media a fair amount talking about this. We want a reform that delivers both for the environment and the economy, because that's the obligation of a government. That's what we want. So I reject the assertions in your question. I reject also the assertion that somehow this is about whose team are you on. You know, we're on the side, the team we're on is that of the Australian people, and that means we want legislation and environmental reforms which ensure we can deliver for both the environment and for the economy. That's what our government is pressing for, and we invite the crossbench and the coalition to do the same.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Australians have seen the Prime Minister wearing high-vis vests of Coles, of Rio Tinto, of coal company Synergy. Does the Prime Minister actually work directly for big corporations now?
Minister Wong.
Yeah. Would you rather not wear PPE?
Order. Order.
No. Well, no. Senator, the Prime Minister works for the people of Australia, people all over the country, including Griffith, Brisbane and Melbourne, and he works to try and get the outcome that he believes is in the national interest. That's what he is focused on, that's what the Cabinet is focused on, that's what the caucus is focused on, that's what the government is focused on, and may I say it, I think that's what the Australian people are also focused on.
Senator Sterle.
Thank you, President. Now, my serious question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Senator Ayres. On the 20th of October in Washington, D.C., the Prime Minister and the President of the United States signed the Critical Minerals Framework to deliver a secured supply chain for critical minerals and rare earths. The US and Australia also announced a combined $2 billion investment over the next 6 months in priority projects in Australia and the US. Why are secure supply chains for critical minerals important for Australia and our allies, Minister? And what are some of these priority projects that we will benefit?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Ayres.
Well, I thank Senator Sterle for that question. And this is very much, it's an Australian story, but it's very much a Western Australian story. His question is right. The critical minerals framework that the Prime Minister of Australia signed with the President of the United States in that meeting in the Cabinet room in the White House will support the development of critical minerals mining and production here in Australia, a diverse, resilient and secure supply chain that is in the interests of Australia and in the interests of our American partners. This is all about reducing market concentration in the global market for critical minerals and rare earths. These are not just any commodity. They are absolutely fundamental for the modern industrial and communications and defence technologies. Without secure supply chains for these materials, we don't have certainty about our access to vital defence and clean energy technologies and systems, or computational capability. All of these ingredients for the modern industrial and technology economy. And, President, this applies equally for our partners. That's why our American partners signed the agreement. It will mobilise billions of dollars of financing in Australia and in the United States to drive project development, like the $200 million in concessional financing which will deliver the Alcoa Sojitz gallium recovery project in Wagerup, Western Australia. A trilateral project, Australia, Japan and the United States. Good regional blue-collar jobs delivered in Western Australia through this framework.
Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. The Critical Minerals Framework covers value-adding refining and smelting of critical minerals and rare earths, as well as mining. Why are metals manufacturing jobs important for regional communities? And why is a healthy and diversified metals manufacturing sector important for the economy at large?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Ayres.
Well, President, the framework sees the critical minerals and rare earths will not just be mined here in Australia, but processed here in Australia. That means we capture more of the value of final product here and delivers far more jobs than just mining alone. In places like the Nyrstar, Port Pirie antimony smelter, which the Albanese Labor government intervened to support just this August. Because we protected that lead smelting capacity, this asset, the new antimony asset, was available to bolster our contribution to the agreement with the United States. And, President, metals processing jobs are good blue-collar jobs in regional industrial centres and outer suburbs. They are the jobs that families can build a life around, the kind of job that support entire communities, and they are jobs that are in the national interest and in the interest of our economic resilience.
Has expired. Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Voters backed the Albanese Labor government's Future Made in Australia agenda at the election. The Critical Minerals Framework is part of the government delivering on its commitment. How will the Future Made in Australia agenda deliver good jobs?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Ayres.
Well, thanks, Senator Sterle, again for that second supplementary question. A Future Made in Australia is all about ensuring that Australia and Australians thrive in a changing and more challenging world, that our abundant minerals and renewable energy will be the foundation of future export industries, making a more resilient Australian economy to ensure ourselves against a changing geopolitical environment. And why do we need to do this? Well, the truth is that those opposite never reckoned with the changing global landscape when they are in government. And their response on these questions to the Future Made in Australia plan of the Albanese government is to bicker and undermine and argue rather than putting their shoulder behind the wheel of national interest.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for the Environment, not the Minister for Mining. Minister, will the government work to remove the carve-outs in the environment laws that allow native forest logging even when there are threatened species present?
Good question.
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thank you. I appreciate the question from the Senator for Senator for South Australia. It's been at least a few months since you've brought some sort of species into this parliament as part of a stunt, so it can't be too far away. What I can commit to is that the Albanese government's Environment Protection Reform Bill, which we will be introducing to this parliament this fortnight, will deliver stronger protections for the environment and simpler processes for business. Now, I know it's a foreign concept for either the Greens or the Coalition to think that you can do both. We know that the Coalition live to deliver only to business at the expense of the environment, and we know that the Greens care about the environment and don't care about Australians getting the housing, the renewable energy projects and other economic projects that we need better approvals for. But the Albanese government is about delivering both. And one of the reasons we're about delivering both is that is exactly what Graham Samuel recommended in his review presented to the former coalition government 5 years ago, where he said that we need to address both environmental protection and approvals processes. So I have said all the way through this process that this is a package deal. You don't get one without the other. You don't get gains for the environment without gains for business, and you don't get gains for business without the environment. And it is possible to do that. I know it suits the Greens political party's political ends to treat this as a binary issue where you can only choose between the environment or homes. You can choose between the environment or renewable energy. You can choose between the environment or jobs. That's what the Greens want you to say, want you to think. But we've broken through that nonsense binary argument when it comes to climate change by recognising that you can take action on climate change while protecting jobs. And similarly, these laws will demonstrate that you can take action on the environment to protect it while supporting jobs and business outcomes as well.
Senator Hanson-Young, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. My supplementary question, after listening to your answer, Minister, is will you work to stop the perverse outcome that your new laws, rather than protecting the climate, will in fact fast-track fossil fuels?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator, for the follow-up question. Of course, as Senator Wong has just mentioned, what we've said all along, give you the credit, what we've always said is that we are willing to pass these reforms with the support of either the Coalition or the Greens. So we are confident that we can get laws through this chamber with the support of either the Coalition or the Greens that actually do deliver those benefits to the environment and business that we are seeking to achieve. Now, I've seen some of the comments from Senator Hanson-Young and the Greens claiming that the bill that we're introducing will make the environment worse. They clearly haven't looked at the bill, because what this bill will do is for the first time create a national Environment Protection Agency with real teeth to crack down on those who are doing the wrong thing. Sounds better for the environment to me. It will deliver new national environmental standards that our country has never had before. It will strengthen the penalties that are dished out to wrongdoers. How can that be against the environment's interest? You people are just interested in stunts.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson-Young, second supplementary.
President, through you, isn't it time you recognised that the Coalition is not interested at all in protecting the environment? They're hopelessly divided. They're led by a right-wing rump that are allergic to the word environment. If you want a deal for nature, you do it with the Greens, mate.
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
First time for everything.
Well, mate, and I do like Senator Hanson-Young. I consider her a bit of a mate despite our political differences. So, mate, well, Senator Hanson-Young has just set out why the government shouldn't pass these reforms with the Coalition. Well, I would put to Senator Hanson-Young and the Greens that there's an easy way to make sure that we don't pass these reforms with the Coalition, and that's to have the Greens party work with the government to deliver environmental reforms that deliver a gain for the environment, for business, for housing, for renewable energy. There's an easy way through that. Come and support us to pass these reforms, and that's what we will get. Or do you want to go back to some of the great moments in Greens political party history? Blocking housing. That worked out well, didn't it? It stopped housing being built and it cost you seats like Brisbane, Griffith and Melbourne. Or should we go further back to the CPRS, the Carbon Pollution Reduction Scheme, where you joined up with the Coalition to block reform as well? If that's what you want to do, that's up to you.
The time for answering has expired. Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Senator Wong. With reference to the critical minerals agreement signed between the United States and Australia, did any representatives of the US government express concerns with Australia's lengthy approvals process or advocate for a streamlining of our approvals process?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I hope that you would be supportive of the critical minerals announcement that has been made. And I hope also that sensible people in your party room will be arguing not for a position which is about political conflict or internal division, but a position which is good for the country. And the reality is we do need serious and urgent reform to this Act. We know that because the Samuel review, which Ms Lee commissioned, told us this 5 years ago. We do know that approvals, there are too many issues and too much duplication with the approval process. What we want is a reform that will deliver both stronger environmental protection and restoration and more efficient and robust project assessment.
Senator McDonald.
Could I draw the minister back to the question about whether or not any representatives of the US government raise concerns?
I believe the minister is being relevant to the question, as Senator McDonald, but I'll listen carefully. Minister Wong.
Senator, I'll be really clear with you. I don't go into discussions with other governments because the opposition decides that it wants to play. No, it's not at all. Wants to play a bit of politics with the US relationship. Still, I would have thought you might have learnt from this last couple of weeks, and you might just do the right thing and back in the deal. What I was going to say is you would be aware that we have been engaging on the critical minerals discussion for some time. You might recall that this was part of our election campaign. You might recall, as I mentioned in my Dixa, that this was an initiative discussed at the second Quad meeting. So we have had long, detailed engagements with the United States, and we have an agreement that is a good agreement. And my suggestion to you is you might want to back it in.
Minister Wong. Senator Ruston? I think the minister's finished. Senator McDonald, first supplementary.
Staying with this question around the representatives of the US government, I'm asking if any express concerns with the increasing frequency of activist lawfare in delaying resources projects and the impacts on critical minerals projects.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
Senator, you know, one of the rules of politics is you try not to play the US relationship into your domestic politics. Seriously. And you really should be doing that. You really should be following that. Because the US relationship matters more than some domestic politics about environmental reform. Now, through the chair, if those opposite are a serious party—
Wong, please resume your seat. Order. 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 I have Senator Ruston on her feet, and I've called for order 3 times. Senator Ruston.
Thank you, Chair. On direct relevance and the answers to both the last question and this question, the senator only asked a very specific and narrow question around whether an issue was raised. The leader seems to think that it is much more interesting to
Senator
have
Ruston,
a political
it doesn't need commentary. The minister is being relevant to the question. Minister Wong, please continue.
Thank you. And the reason for that is the US relationship. I know you don't support the alliance, the Greens political party, but the reason for that is the alliance between the United States and Australia is critical to our national security. It's critical to our national security. So we have differences and we manage them.
Order.
We have agreement and we further that. But what we don't do is what you continue to do, which is to try and play some domestic politics when we see an agreement that is good for the country, that is in the spirit of the alliance, and it's about time you backed it in.
Order. Senator Shoebridge. Senator Shoebridge, which part of me calling order doesn't apply to you? You are incredibly disrespectful, as were you, Senator Henderson, after I called for order at least 4 times. Senator McDonald, second supplementary.
Minister, can the government guarantee that taxpayers' funds will not be used or channelled through environmental activist groups to delay, to obstruct or prevent approvals for new critical minerals projects that underpin the new agreement with the United States?
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
Pass the bill. Yeah. How about you pass the bill? I mean, there's a lot of complaining over there. This is a bill that needs to be passed. If you have problems with the current environmental legislation, Senator, I'm not surprised you get to your feet. It's a bit embarrassing,
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator McKenzie, I called you to order on several occasions and you simply ignored me. That is disrespectful. Senator McDonald.
On relevance, I asked about taxpayers' funds, not about environmental approvals.
Thank you, Senator McDonald. The minister is being relevant to your question. Senator Watt. Senator Watt, this is not your question. Minister Wong. Order. Minister Wong, I've called. Have you finished your question? Have you finished your question?
Sorry, Chair. President. Senator, I've seen comments by a number of commentators, also by the BCA, talking about your position on the bill, and I'd invite you to consider those. I'd invite you to consider ensuring that you engage properly and responsibly with this legislation, because this legislation, this Act is in need of reform. A number of the things you are critical of are precisely the sorts of issues that the minister is seeking to address. So perhaps instead of trying to play a bit of politics around this and the Critical Minerals Agreement with the US administration, you pass the legislation.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to Senator Ayres, representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Mr Bowen. Minister, is coal-powered electricity generation intermittent energy or baseload generation?
Senator Ayres.
Well, here I am. Senator Roberts' question really does, bell the cat in terms of where One Nation and their almost coalition partners over here in the National and Liberal parties really are on some of these climate and energy questions. I think if I go directly to Senator Roberts's reference to the unreliability of our current ageing coal-fired power fleet, that is, as I cursorily read the newspaper, I think that is what Minister Bowen was referring to, because what is going on every single day is that there is an unplanned outage of one or more of these facilities. And that redundancy, unplanned redundancy, causes additional cost, puts pressure on industry, and it reminds Australians that under the previous government, all of that uncertainty, all of that policy failure, where I think I'll come back and let you know, Senator Roberts, if I get this wrong, but I think it was 24 out of 28, I think, coal-fired power stations announced their closure. And what did we have from the Liberals and Nationals? Sort of relitigating the same old nonsense that held Australia back, with a $600 billion nuclear power plan, and Mr Littleproud saying we should sweat these assets. I mean, the only way, if you went to some of these power stations in New South Wales, the only people that would say you would sweat that asset is somebody who'd never been to one.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
Coal power is baseload generation. It's designed to run continuously, and when operated continuously, electricity generation from coal is reliable and affordable. It only becomes intermittent and expensive when the generator is deliberately turned on and off all the time to give preference to what is really intermittent power, solar and wind. Minister, why is the government's energy policy set to deliberately destroying baseload power, coal?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Ayres.
Well, I suppose there's a number of responses, Senator Roberts. The first is coal-fired power stations fail when there is a breakdown or there is planned maintenance. Now, when there's planned maintenance, that's a good thing because you're improving the capability of the asset. When an asset like that has gone on for so long that it can't continue to function reliably, it can't continue. Old Koala Canavan over here.
Senator Ayres, withdraw that remark. I withdraw.
But Senator, that is the problem. So we are moving to modernise the electricity system to deliver the lowest cost, most reliable approach, the Australian approach, and we won't be deterred by imported ideas about political memes and weird ideologies about the future of our electricity system.
Minister Ayres. Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. According to the Australian Energy Regulator, for the fourth quarter of 2024 saw the second highest number of extreme electricity price events ever, with prices exceeding $5,000 per megawatt hour. $5,000. This happens when baseload power generation is not in the mix. Instead, when run continuously, coal can provide electricity at just $50 per megawatt hour. Minister, will you give Australians suffering from record-high electricity prices a break and run our coal generators properly?
The time for asking your question has expired. Minister Ayres.
Well, what this government will do is continue to modernise our electricity system in the interests of industry, in the interests of households, in the interests of future industry. Because what we require in this country is additionality, more generation capacity, more transmission capability, and the Coalition and One Nation, who campaign against energy generation capability around Australia, wandering around, whether it's about koalas or complaining somehow that offshore wind projects will be bad for whales. I mean, these whales who go up and down the eastern Australian coast dodging container ships and bulk carriers are somehow going to door themselves on a stationary offshore wind tower. It is too silly for words. It's too silly for words, sillier than a two-bob watch, and it's imported weird ideology coming from overseas that's been used to try and stop progress right here in Australia.
I was advised earlier that Senator Babet has given his question to One Nation, so I call Senator Whitten.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Minister Gallagher. Does the Australian government have the right or the authority to dictate where superannuation funds invest hard-working Australian super?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President, and I thank Senator Whitten for the question. The superannuation funds are regulated by the Superannuation Industry Act and other pieces of legislation. That is the Parliament's or the position the Parliament has taken around the roles and responsibilities of superannuation funds. They are governed by those laws. They have responsibilities as outlined under those pieces of legislation. They have responsibilities to their members and to ensure the members' interests are put first and foremost. But as to individual decisions that are taken by the funds about where they invest, those are taken by the Board of Directors, usually, of each individual superannuation fund.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Whitten, first supplementary.
Thank you. That sounded like a no. The White House has published on its website that, quote, Australian superannuation funds will increase investments in the United States to $1.44 trillion by 2035. That's US dollars. To me, that sounds like a very definitive statement. Superannuation is not the government's money to use. It belongs to the Australian people and should be invested only for the benefit of its members. Why is the government using the Australian people's super as a political football?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I don't accept the question and the imputation in that question as outlined by Senator Whitten. I mean, superannuation funds have accumulated significant amounts of capital, and it is appropriate that those funds make decisions in their members' interests about where those investments are. They're in a range of investments. I think if you look at any superannuation funds, information that they provide readily to members, you'll see that there are typically, in fact almost always, investments made overseas. We do believe that superannuation investments in the US will continue to grow, and that is a good thing. It's a good thing for the members whose funds are being invested ultimately for their retirement income, and we've seen the success of the superannuation industry, in particular in the returns that they've been providing each year, which is a huge benefit to the Australian people.
Senator Whitten, second supplementary.
The ambassador to the US, Kevin 07 himself, tweeted, "Australian super funds are supercharging economic growth in the United States." What about Australia's economic growth? Labor is setting a very dangerous precedent. The superannuation pot has become too fat and juicy, it seems. After the Treasurer backflipped on the unrealised capital gains tax, you started using super for political leverage. Will Labor commit to leaving hard-working Australians' superannuation alone?
Thank you, Senator Whitten. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, the Labor Party is the party that established compulsory superannuation. We're the party that continues to back compulsory super, and we do it for a number of reasons, and most particularly that the Australian citizens have access to funds that allow them to live a dignified retirement. That is the purpose of superannuation. That is the one we support and we continue to support. And where we can strengthen it, we do, like raising it to 12%, for example, like putting the LISTO back on so that lower-income workers have the same or similar tax benefits from superannuation as they're provided through the income scale, paying super on PPL so that women don't miss out on superannuation payments when they make those critical years of out of the workforce, often caring for children. That is the position of federal Labor, and we will continue to invest in super and in the superannuation benefits for the Australian people.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Nice to see you as well. Late on Friday, the Chair of Housing Australia announced her sudden resignation. This comes 2 weeks after the Treasury admitted to the existence of a secret $24,000 report, paid for by taxpayers, which looked into the government's failures at Housing Australia. When will the government release this report?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Senator, thank you for the question. I understand that you asked this at Senate estimates, and I'm also advised that Treasury took on notice what they could provide, and so I'd refer you to that process. But obviously, we are pleased that we are able to continue to deliver social and affordable housing. I would make this point that we have some 55,000 social and affordable homes we are seeking to deliver. 5,000 have been completed through Commonwealth programs and 25,000 are in construction or planning.
I think the minister's finished her question. I'll invite you to ask your your first supplementary.
Okay, right. It wasn't a very long answer. The Treasury, thank you very much, President. The Treasury admitted the government requested this secret investigation at Housing Australia. It was commissioned by the former Minister for Housing at the end of 2023. Minister, why did the government think the governance was so bad at Housing Australia it needed an independent report?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Well, I'd refer you to the Treasury evidence on that, Senator, which, as I understand, was the government did determine that there should be an independent investigation, that there was no breach of the Code of Conduct. We know that Housing Australia is performing an important role in delivering homes for Australians, and we will continue to get on with the job of doing that.
Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. After wasting $10 billion on this housing fund, will the government fix this structure, or will we see just another Labor Party mate appointed into this position to run this scheme?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Well, there's so much in that I want to respond to. The first is, you see, this is when you say what you really think, and but which you didn't say for a few weeks there, Senator Bragg, which is that you just think this is all a waste, because actually you don't want government involved in increasing housing supply. Yep. And you know how we know that? You just don't want Australians who are struggling to have homes that are supported in their construction by the Government of Australia. Well, we fundamentally disagree. This is not a waste. That's what you described it as, a waste. Well, I don't think it's a waste to deliver 55,000 houses, socially affordable houses in this country. We don't think that's a waste. And I know you have an ideological position where you think housing should be the preserve of those who can afford it. Well, we think more Australians should be entitled to the dream of home ownership.
Thank you, Minister.
And we are determined to invest in social.
Senator Grogan. Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Women, Senator Gallagher. During the election campaign, the Albanese Labor government announced the landmark Women's Health Package, investing almost $800 million in funding to deliver better health care for Australian women and girls. One of the key areas identified in the Women's Health Strategy was making sure that women have a genuine choice when it comes to their reproductive health. Choices that are not limited by access or cost. How is the government supporting more choice, lower cost and better health for Australian women, particularly in relation to their reproductive health?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President, and I thank Senator Grogan for this question and for her advocacy for women in Australia, and particularly in relation to our Labor's very strong women's health package that we took to the last election. It is really important that women's health needs are addressed. Sadly, this has been an area that has not been addressed in a timely fashion. And when we came to government, a lot of work was done under the former Assistant Minister, Minister Carney, who, through the Women's Health Council and other consultations, to go and really identify those areas where we needed to improve in the offering of not only MBS items but also PBS items. And it was very clear from that work that it had been too long for affordable contraception improvements to be listed on the PBS. It's hard to get your head around the fact that the modern contraceptive pill hadn't been listed. A new modern contraceptive pill, oral contraceptive, hadn't been put on the PBS for 30 years. 30 years. And that women were paying out of their own pockets for access to these improvements in contraceptive medications. Well, we are changing that. And again, we've got a new listing that's just been provided, but from the 1st of November, again, really important changes that are being put in place to make sure that women not only have more choice, they're lower costs and better support. So even on areas like long-term contraceptives, so IUDs and other birth control implants, that Medicare payments are recognising those, that we're looking at ways to invest in staff to ensure better training so that we're getting women using those types of contraception at levels that we see in other countries. Again, this hasn't been the case because women's health under the former government was not addressed as it should have been, with improvements to MBS or PBS.
Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you, and thanks to the Minister for that response. For too long, as you've referenced, women have had to navigate unnecessary barriers to the care that they need. How are the changes being made by the Albanese Labor government making sure that women have genuine choice when it comes to their reproductive health, and choice that specifically is not limited by cost or access?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, and I thank Senator Grogan for the supplementary. So as we are rolling out our commitment that we took to the last election, so as Senator Grogan said, around more choice, so the first PBS listings for new contraceptive pills in more than 30 years with Yaz, Yasmin, Slinda, which is already saving 150,000 women hundreds of dollars. More choice, lower costs, better access to long-term contraceptives with larger Medicare payments, more bulk billing for IUD and birth control implants, saving around 300,000 women a year, up to $400 in out-of-pocket costs. There's also more Medicare support for women experiencing menopause after that important inquiry that Senator Smith held in the last parliament, with new Medicare rebate for menopause health assessments, funding to train health professionals, and the first ever clinical guidelines and a national awareness campaign. Also now listing new menopausal hormone therapies, again for the first time in over 20 years.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
Thank you. Can the minister outline for us? We know that health professionals play a really important part in supporting women's health. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to support health professionals so that they can, in turn, support women to have greater contraceptive choice?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President, and Senator Grogan for the supplementary. Well, we need to invest in health professionals, make sure that they have the training that they need to be able to provide accurate or appropriate advice to women and offer women the choices that these new listings offer. Including the first ever clinical guidelines, as I said before, which again is there to support the health workforce. We know that for long-acting contraceptives, the levels of the Australian women use those contraceptives is much lower than in like economies and countries, and we need to understand that a bit more. But part of that is making sure that we're training the health workforce, making sure that the Medicare items that support those consultations are funded appropriately, and making sure that health professionals have all the guidelines and guidance that they need to be able to provide those choices to women.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Wong.
Thank you, President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.
Senator Ruston.
Thank you, President.